Hello everyone, Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 12th edition of the Arctic Future Symposium organized by the International Polar Foundation. My name is Nicolas van Hoecke. I'm the Managing Director of the Foundation. I would like to thank you for your participation today at this symposium. But I would not only like to thank you for the participation that it is here in person or online, but also would like to thank you for your flexibility and your understanding as much as it is difficult to organize these events in these times where we had to implement a number of COVID measures. We also understand it's not that easy to participate. Our team and our partners, which I would like to thank here particularly, have done a great job in setting up the symposium, in preparing the symposium. And in all fairness, there were moments where we were not sure that we would be able to have this event in person today here in Brussels. So my sincere thanks not only to the speakers, but also to the partners and again, the IPF team who set all this up. So we have an exciting program for the coming 2 days. And if you wish to access the program, just for the sake of trying not to use too much paper, you see posters around the location. So if you scan the QR code, you will have all the information about the program and the speakers. Okay. So before we kick off the program, I would like to invite Piet Steele, one of the Foundation's board member, to make some opening remarks. So thanks you all. Welcome, Piet, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Nicolas. And ladies and gentlemen, excellencies, distinguished guests, on behalf of the International Polar Foundation and its many Arctic stakeholder partners, I have great pleasure of welcoming you at the 12th Annual Arctic Futures Symposium. Due to the latest COVID regulations here in Brussels, this year's symposium is being held as a hybrid event today and tomorrow, so both online and in person here in Brussels in the hotel. And I said this is the 12th time already that the Arctic Future Symposium has served as a public forum to give Arctic stakeholders an opportunity to discuss issues that are important to them. And the symposium is an essential part of the International Polar Foundation's mandate as a Belgian public utility foundation to inform and to educate the general public and policymakers about important issues facing the polar regions. And this year's hybrid format allows those interested to watch the symposium panel discussions from anywhere in the world, as it was also the case last year. And we are happy to see that the interest in Arctic matters and the symposium itself is increasing with each edition. The Arctic is experiencing many challenges. That's maybe an understatement. And I would say this is especially so in the face of climate change, which affects the Arctic more drastically than any other part of the world. However, the Arctic is an incredible place, inhabited by resilient, innovative, and accomplished people. Their stories can be used as a source of inspiration for the rest of us, and we seek to mitigate the efforts of climate change and make our economies more sustainable and our societies more resilient. We would like to thank everyone here who has taken time for their busy schedules to contribute to this event, and most notably our distinguished speakers and moderators, and our many partners and collaborators who are too numerous to mention here today. Ladies and gentlemen, I have now the honor of introducing the first of today's many distinguished speakers. I would like to introduce Her Excellency, Mrs. Ailish Campbell, the Ambassador of Canada to the European Union, who will deliver the first of 4 opening keynote speeches of the symposium. Madam Ambassador, I know you are not in the room here, but I give you the floor wherever you are. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Can you hear me okay? Can you hear me okay from the room? Yeah. I hope so. Someone can put it in the chat if you can't hear me, and we'll try to adjust on our side. Good. I'm seeing a yes from Greenland, which is always a great sign. Allow me to start by saying a very warm welcome to an incredibly important symposium. My name is Dr. Ailish Campbell. I'm Canada's ambassador to the European Union, and I'm delighted to kick off this Arctic Future Symposium. Ce symposium vise à favoriser d'importantes conversations sur l'Arctique, notamment sur la manière de mieux lutter contre le changement climatique, d'encourager les mesures d'adaptation au climat et de protéger sa biodiversité unique et aussi fragile. As you may know, Canada is one of 8 Arctic states, along with the Kingdom of Denmark, Finland. Happy National Day, by the way, I believe, to our Finns joining us. Iceland, Norway, Russia, Sweden, and the United States. The Arctic is central to our Canadian national identity and to our prosperity, security, values, and indeed interests. The Arctic covers more than 40% of Canada's territory and is home to more than 200,000 inhabitants, more than half of whom are Indigenous Canadians. Its rich history and culture are a fundamental part of our social fabric, nature, and well-being. In September 2019, Canada released our Arctic and Northern Policy Framework, which is a roadmap to a future which envisions all Arctic and Northern communities as thriving, strong, healthy, and safe. The framework was co-developed with federal, provincial, territorial, and most importantly, Indigenous partners, as a testament to Canada's commitment to reconciliation with Indigenous peoples. It reflects the priorities of the peoples living in Canada's north and puts their future into their hands. By working in partnership with Indigenous partners to implement the Arctic and Northern Policy Framework, Canada will continue to advance its goals of reconciliation and our work to renew our relationship with Inuit, First Nations, and Métis people. The leadership and traditional knowledge of Indigenous peoples cannot be underestimated. Indeed, it's central to everything that we do. I look forward to seeing how we are decolonizing our agendas, bringing in more diverse and unique voices. I'd like to thank those Inuit who have taken the time to mentor me, particularly in my previous role as Canada's Chief Trade Commissioner, when I visited Nunavut several times to meet with Inuit-owned businesses, to hear their stories about their thriving economic interests, the interests that they have across family and national links, and of course, what they need in order to thrive and continue to survive in the Arctic. I'd also like to thank Minister Councillor Inutek Holm Olsen of the Greenland representation here in Brussels for our discussions earlier this year with now retired former National Chief Perry Bellegarde on the role of Indigenous peoples in our work on the Arctic and on policy more generally. Our new framework also emphasizes supporting youth with a view to developing resilient and healthy communities. To this end, we are committed to providing Arctic and Northern youth with increased opportunities to participate in and benefit from Canada's International Arctic Agenda. And we'll hear from some of them during today and tomorrow's symposiums. Now let me talk about some of Canada's main international priorities related to the Arctic. We are working to strengthen our leadership in the Arctic Council, the preeminent forum for Arctic cooperation, particularly its work on the human dimensions of Arctic economic and social well-being. I'm pleased to note that the Council's efforts have led to the increased inclusion of Indigenous peoples representatives alongside Arctic states. Having the engagement of Indigenous peoples is crucial, indeed essential to the Arctic Council's success, as it ensures their voices not only contribute, but are decisive in our processes. Canada also helped establish the Arctic Council Sustainable Development Working Group. We are proud to be able to support the establishment of a permanent secretariat for this working group hosted at the Université de Laval, Institut Nordique de Québec, that will bolster the Council's work on the human dimensions of our efforts. Another priority for Canada is defining the outer limits of Canada's continental shelf in the Arctic Ocean and towards resolving outstanding boundary issues in accordance with international law. Bilaterally, we are increasing cooperation with Arctic and key non-Arctic states and entities. This includes engagement with other Arctic states in all areas related to Indigenous issues, scientific cooperation, environmental protection, as well as engaging on the Arctic with others to ensure issues of mutual interest are discussed. And this, of course, includes our trusted partners across the EU institutions. Under our Canada-EU Strategic Partnership Agreement, Canada and the EU recently held a formal consultation on security and defense issues. Our discussions highlighted the fact that climate change is making the Arctic more accessible, resulting in increased international economic and geostrategic activities in the Arctic, due in part, of course, to its strategic position and rich natural resources. Our discussions with the EU emphasize that we must collectively work together to ensure that development in the Arctic continues in a sustainable and peaceful manner, in line with the traditional knowledge and desires of those who live there. The Arctic has traditionally been an area of low international tension, and we will seek to work constructively with other Arctic states to ensure that it does not become a place of international tensions. Our discussions serve to reinforce that the main challenge facing the Arctic is climate change. Protecting biodiversity and ensuring the sustainable livelihoods of those who live there are key priorities. COVID-19 has taught all of us that the world can change rapidly. It has brought to the forefront the need to collectively address infrastructure, connectivity gaps, and economic and social development globally. That's why you have my commitment as Canada's ambassador to the EU that we will also continue to mainstream Arctic considerations into other strategic dialogues with the European Union and other partners, including on infrastructure, the digital development agenda, and healthcare. The discussions that will take place at this symposium are meant to enable cooperation among Arctic states and interested non-Arctic parties, and to advance sustainable development and environmental protection of the Arctic region. Global challenges such as the pandemic response and recovery, climate change, and threats to the rules-based international order require us to continue to work together to ensure the Arctic remains a zone of peaceful cooperation. Le gouvernement du Canada demeure déterminé à poursuivre le dialogue sur l'Arctique avec tous les intervenants engagés, et je suis heureuse de constater qu'un si grand nombre de nos collègues de l'Arctique et de l'Union européenne participent aux séances aujourd'hui et demain. I look forward to engaging on the outcomes of the discussions and wish all participants joining both in person and online a fantastic symposium. Thank you. It's been an honor to join you today.
Thank you, Ambassador, for the powerful insights and the speech. I would like now to invite James DeHart, the US coordinator for the Arctic. Mr. DeHart, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. My thanks to the International Polar Foundation. I really appreciate being invited here today. And good afternoon to all of you here in the room and those listening in. It's nice to be any place in person these days. So I think, as everybody understands here, as the Arctic is warming 3 times faster than the global average, it's going to become a busier place in the years ahead. Maybe not as busy as the Grand Place during Christmas market, but it is going to get busier. Fisheries moving north, fishing fleets following, more commercial shipping, tourist industry preparing to send vessels up through the Northwest Passage, various nations trying to establish a military presence in the region, mineral extraction, other resource extraction. So busier. And there is potential for geopolitical competition in the region. And in fact, we're seeing that happening already. Secretary of State Blinken traveled to Reykjavik for the Arctic Council Ministerial in May, and he acknowledged the geopolitical competition that we're seeing. But very importantly, I think he said, look, the focus here has got to be on cooperation. And we have a responsibility as nations to make sure that the long-standing patterns of cooperation that we've seen in the Arctic continue in the future. But we'll have to work hard to make sure that that is the case and keep the region peaceful. Last March, President Biden issued new interim national security strategic guidance that guides our approach to the world, and three important principles in this guidance. One, that the United States will uphold international laws, rules, institutions that have served us and our allies and partners well. Two, that we will revitalize our alliances and partnerships. And three, that will connect domestic renewal in the United States with our foreign policy efforts. You can't be successful overseas if you're not strong at home, and we would say vice versa. These three principles apply to our approach around the world, and it's almost as if they were written for the Arctic region as well, because first, rules and institutions. The Arctic is a region with strong rules, existing governance frameworks. Not everybody would have us believe that. Some would portray it as sort of a ungoverned space, sort of a wild north where resources are up for grabs. But that's not accurate. The truth is, the region does benefit from strong existing governance. Starts with the sovereignty of the Arctic states and those national jurisdictions, and it includes very notably UN Convention on Law of the Sea, which provides for freedom of navigation and the management of marine resources and so forth. And it also benefits from strong institutions, and most notably the Arctic Council, which we see as the region's premier forum, and which we message that constantly, and we support it as the region's premier forum in practice. We like the Arctic Council because it provides for strong cooperation among the participants, and also because it puts the Arctic states at the forefront, together with the indigenous peoples of the region at the forefront, at the main table. And even though it doesn't deal with military security, it makes a contribution to low tensions in the region through its cooperative activities. The ministerial meeting that took place in Reykjavik in May, very successful. Icelanders had a great chairmanship. We saw renewed solidarity in the form of an agreed declaration, a new 10-year strategic plan for the Council, and putting the climate crisis at the forefront of what we need to work on. And everybody there welcomed Russia's assumption of the chairmanship as well and pledged to cooperate with Russia. And just in the last few days, the senior Arctic officials of the Arctic Council met in Russia, had a very good meeting, which I'm told was well organized and productive, and I think we'll hear from the senior Arctic officials here today, which will be great. So that's rules and institutions. Second principle of alliances and partnerships. We have great allies and partners in the Arctic region. And since the Arctic Council doesn't do military security, and we don't want it to do military security, we handle those issues closely with our allies and partners, and we rely on bodies like NATO and NORAD with Canada. It is important to have a strong deterrence posture, and we will do that through NATO. More important today, probably when we look at events elsewhere in the world, than for a while. And NATO will continue to operate with transparency, and it will continue to be a defensive alliance that is organized for peace. Third principle, domestic renewal, and tying it to our foreign policy efforts. For us, the Arctic is Alaska. How we invest in Alaska has an impact not just on the lives of Alaskans, but also our ability to project influence more broadly. and beyond the American Arctic. The president now has signed an infrastructure and jobs bill. That'll bring some benefits and investment to Alaska, which is important. And we want to connect that to what we are doing overseas. When you look at maritime transportation infrastructure, ports, and other support for vessels, when you look at communications, that can benefit both local communities, but increase broadband for vessels, including security vessels operating farther north. I mean, these are some of the places that domestic investment connects with our foreign policy goals. And it is important to remember that people live in this region and need livelihoods and need development, as Mads Fredriksson of the Arctic Economic Council and I were talking about just this morning. So the United States recognizes the need to be present in the Arctic. We will be present. We have opened up a new consulate in Nuuk, Greenland, which has been an exciting initiative, and a lot of good work, I think, is taking place there. We have a program for new polar security cutters, so we'll have the ice-breaking capabilities we need in the future. The U.S. Air Force and the Army are more present than ever before in the state of Alaska. Department of Defense is establishing a new Arctic Studies Center with more announcements to come, but I think it will be located in Alaska and it'll be a great center of partnership and bringing our allies and partners together for security in the Arctic. And we're getting better organized through the Arctic Executive Steering Committee in the United States, which brings our federal agencies together, domestic and national security. And science, we have a rejuvenated Arctic Research Commission to make sure that everything we do is informed by good science, which Mike Sfraga will be able to speak to. Finally, since we are in Brussels, which feels a little like the Arctic this week, let me say also that we took note of the EU's joint communication on the Arctic, and we welcome that. We welcome collaboration with the EU. We welcome the EU's attention to the region. We appreciate the contributions that the European Union makes through the working groups of the Arctic Council, and look forward to collaborating with the EU as we implement together the agreement on unregulated fisheries in the Central Arctic Ocean and getting the joint scientific program launched. The United States is hosting a first meeting in February to chart a course for the program. And we also welcome further collaboration through the International Maritime Organization on shipping, safe shipping, clean shipping, low emissions shipping. So there's a lot of work we can do together as partners, including with the European Union and Commission. We look forward to doing that, and I really look forward to hearing the rest of the presentations today. So thank you again for the invitation. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. DeHart, on your view on the importance of collaboration and the details on the 3 principles of US diplomacy. Thank you. I would like to invite now, I think it's online, Mr. Mike Sfraga. He's the chair of the US Arctic Research Commission. Mr. Sfraga, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good morning from Washington, D.C. Someone give me a thumbs up if you can hear me okay. Okay, I see thumbs up. Perfect. I am really sad that I'm not with you today in Brussels. I had looked forward to being with friends and colleagues, but this will have to do for now. I want to thank the leadership and the staff of the International Polar Foundation for the compliment of inviting me to speak today to this symposium. Always a favorite. I look forward to doing it again, hopefully next time in person. As just noted, I was recently appointed by President Biden to be the chair of the United States Arctic Research Commission. One of my tasks in this talk is to tell you a little bit more about that commission and how the commission overlaps with the very issues Jim DeHart just pointed out, but also emphasizing international cooperation. So I'll speak to you today as chair, also as the founding director of the Polar Institute at the Woodrow Wilson Center. perhaps most importantly, as an Alaskan, as a citizen of the state. And Jim highlighted so very well the critical position that Alaska holds vis-a-vis the United States, but also friends and allies, and in this world of a changing Arctic. I had a series of points I was going to make at the beginning, but I've kind of thrown them out because my colleagues have covered issues that not so much I wanted to cover specifically, but because they have drawn or redrawn perhaps a theme this morning. So I'm just going to riff for a moment on some of that. Based on what I've just heard, it really is quite palpable that we are in the new Arctic. This is new. It's always been there, but the dynamics around the Arctic, the policy implications I work on in terms of the Wilson Center, but the overlap, the interconnectedness, the nexus between science and policy, perhaps has never been more important. And I'm hearing that already. And the new Arctic is no longer an emerging region of interest. It has emerged. It is done. These issues are at the forefront of a lot of discussions. The new Arctic is an integrated, interdependent region, connected globally to the broader environmental and political and economic and social and cultural and security landscapes, as already noted in the first 20 minutes or so of this program. The Arctic is no longer a place somewhere over there or up there. It's now everywhere. And as an Alaskan, it's good to hear. As a citizen of the United States, it's good for my own country to recognize that. But it's lovely to have Arctic and non-Arctic states also engaged in helping to shape this new Arctic. And our new Arctic is going to require us to do the things we've just heard today, to champion, to support, to coordinate, to enable, to fund fact-based, science-driven policies and the governance structures that were pointed out and the management regimes that were just pointed out. And how we manage such efforts will determine the physical and political contours of this new Arctic. These kind of discussions are so very important, so thank you. And as we navigate this new global reality, we have a lot to build on, as Jim DeHart and others just pointed out. The Arctic Council. I would also add the International Arctic Science Committee, IASC, and IASA, and the IMO, and the ever more consequential Arctic Coast Guard Forum. If there ever was an organization that demonstrates in real time cooperation between the 8 Arctic nations on some really important issues, it's the Arctic Coast Guard Forum. So much has happened in so little time to catch up to this new Arctic. All very good things. Not that we don't have our challenges, we do. But in short, we have several international fora that provide a track record of cooperation that has withstood so far the many challenges facing the Arctic and non-Arctic nations. And these challenges mostly come from outside of the region. And these cooperative frameworks are taking on the challenges associated with Jim DeHart just pointed out, the most consequential existential threat we face, which is climate change. Right? That is the major driver in the North. And a lot of these organizations that were pointed out all have strong research components to them. The Arctic Council, as many of you know, well, their task force and their working groups focused on Arctic research, focused on cooperation, focused on science. And it's in this context, now I'll come back to maybe my notes here. Specifically, I want to talk about how the United States Arctic Research Commission plays an important role in advancing the Biden-Harris approach to a whole of government approach to the Arctic, and how these efforts complement some of the very efforts underway via the EU's new Arctic policy. So let me just take a moment to share with you, if you don't already know, about the Arctic Research Commission. It was established in 1984 by Congress. There are 7 commissioners. They represent Alaska Native communities, industry, the academic and research communities. It's a lovely nexus of all of these interests with a staff here in Washington, DC, and in my home state in Alaska. And we have an ex officio member, which is the director of the National Science Foundation. The commission's a bit different. It's an independent federal agency, which advises the president directly of the United States and Congress on the domestic and international Arctic research and related policies. And there are 5 overarching duties. I won't go into them in detail, but you should know that the commission has been tasked to establish the national policy, priorities, and goals necessary to construct a federal program plan for basic and applied scientific research with respect to the Arctic, which includes and related policies. many of the issues that Jim pointed out previously. We are here to promote Arctic research, to recommend Arctic research policy, and communicate our research, again, directly to the President and to Congress. We work closely with the National Science Foundation and the National Science and Technology Council, and we give guidance to something called the Interagency Arctic Research Policy Committee, or IARPC. They are charged by the United States to create a 5-year Arctic research plan. We work very closely with them. We inform and influence. Again, as Jim noted, this Venn diagram of federal organizations trying to work closely together to advance issues for the United States, but so much consequentially comes out in terms of linking to our partners throughout the North, including, of course, the EU. I couldn't help but note that the 5 current goals of the Arctic Research Commission, which will be updated in the first quarter of 2022, have so much overlap between what was just released by the EU in terms of its Arctic policy. We're currently working under 5 primary goals for the United States Arctic Research Commission. Again, won't go to them in details, but you should hear the themes. And we will refine these in the first quarter. The first is to advance Arctic infrastructure, all Arctic infrastructure, not just broadband, but ports and rails and all the things that Jim DeHart just noted. We're asked to assess Arctic natural resources, wise development, stable development, predictable development of our natural resources. To observe, understand, and forecast Arctic environmental change, right? The focus on research. To improve community health and well-being, this now understanding that the Arctic isn't just about 3 or 4 items, it's the full kaleidoscope of what civilization faces. And our 5th goal is to enhance an international scientific cooperation in the Arctic. And when I've read through the EU's policy, we see some incredible overlap. Climate change a driving issue, fostering dialogue and cooperation with the international community, addressing ecological, social, and economic political challenges, supporting an inclusive and sustainable development of the Arctic region. Research and science and innovation in the North and applying that to the very challenges we all face. So many overlapping themes that we share where we could find areas to build upon, but also perhaps new cooperative mechanisms. And as I've noted before, sound and effective policy is informed, influenced, crafted, executed by sound and robust science and research. And Jim noted the efforts that the United States has taken in the last few months to better position itself, not just domestically, but internationally, because in order to inform and shape the new Arctic, it will require many nations, not just one. And so we are very pleased as the U.S. Arctic Research Commission to be a part of that federal effort to be a whole of government approach, but also an international approach as well. So finally, the U.S. Arctic Research Commission plays a vital role domestically and internationally, reporting directly to the President and to Congress. Our job is to shape, support, and advance Arctic science and research, and we look forward to working with international partners to help foster the most productive, equitable, stable, and sustainable new Arctic. I will leave it there and wait for questions, but I thank you very much again for the compliment of joining you this morning and your afternoon.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sfraga. Pity not to have you with us today. We hope maybe next time. We appreciate the explanation and the importance, the explanation on the important role of the U.S. Arctic Research Commission. I would like now to hand over to Mr. Rolf, to Ambassador Rolf, Einar Fife, the Ambassador of Norway to the European Union.
Thank you so much, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, people here present physically and virtually, and to you all, dear friends in and of the Arctic. I'd like to start by paying tribute to the International Polar Foundation. Un grand merci à l'Institut Polaire International, and particularly to Mr. Piet, member of this board of directors, for organizing this event and doing so every year in spite of challenges relating to pandemics or other things, but highlighting the importance of the Arctic in a very consistent way. We are honored to be your partners. Nous sommes vraiment honorés d'être vos partenaires. My remarks will be in total harmony with what has been said by the other keynote speakers, thereby also exemplifying how harmonious cooperation is in the Arctic. But I would like to start, before structuring my remarks around the program for this year's round, by making a couple of overarching points, which I think are epitomize, in a sense, or encapsulate key points, vantage points seen from the Norwegian side. First, in looking at any issue in the Arctic, we should appreciate more and more that this is a truly multifaceted region. Maybe, just maybe, we should speak of the Arctics as a plural or in the plural. For example, most of Norway's Arctic areas are relatively temperate, mostly ice-free, and have been so for centuries already, not awaiting ice melting. That is thanks to the Gulf Stream. And with over 480,000 inhabitants living permanently north of the Arctic Circle, we have a quite densely inhabited area compared to many other Arctic regions. That was my first point. My second overarching point is we should not look at the Arctic as primarily a region in dire need of help. It is instead a region with opportunities, with knowledge, businesses, and people that have provided already a number of solutions to pressing challenges and will continue to do so, also with the assistance of science and close partnerships with others. Now, if we move on to the program for this event, let me just say to start with that governance in the Arctic is, as ever, a sensible place to start. Contrary to widely held perceptions, which tend to focus on vulnerabilities and gaps and risks, the Arctic is a region that offers solutions, among other things, as already highlighted by several speakers. The Arctic is a region that has generated major advancements in international law and resolved a number of issues in the past over more than 100 years. Legal innovation, often in context of dispute settlement, has in turn contributed to low tension, even at the height of the Cold War. And Norway has negotiated a remarkable number of treaties clarifying the extent of national responsibilities through the limitation treaties and limits of continental shelf, but also participated, basing on such clarity, together with other Arctic states, in developing partnerships and cooperative patterns, to which one has already alluded. So I would venture the following proposition, that is that for decades, the Arctic states have led the way in putting forward bilateral or trilateral or multilateral frameworks to manage issues of common concern in the Arctic by advancing science-based and, in inclusive ways, practical solutions to real problems. This network of Arctic cooperation involves local government, local communities, indigenous people, the science communities, civil society at large, in addition to non-Arctic actors. I believe we should all recognize and support those efforts, recognize their success. Now, as alluded to already, the geopolitical situation has become more demanding, that is worldwide. International interest in the Arctic has also been growing. That is actually good, as has been referred to. We see this also here in Brussels with the recent joint communication on the Arctic from the European Commission and the High Representative of the Union for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy. In these circumstances, the single most important contribution any actor can make for the benefit of the Arctic is to sustain and promote international cooperation and respect for international law. Moving on to the second topic and fixing our eyes on the future, Arctic youth, demographics, and capacity building. Focusing on that makes a lot of sense. You're really on the spot. Now, I refer to the fact that Norwegian Arctic is home to almost 10% of our population and comprises 35% of our land mass. Providing sustainable livelihoods with green shift, digitalization, and resilience for the people living in the Arctic is the cornerstone of Norwegian Arctic policy. The previous Norwegian government established, because you may know we had general elections in September, the previous Norwegian government established an advisory youth panel for its recent white paper on the Arctic. I think that is quite remarkable, listening to the voices of the youth in order to move over onto policy formulation. And key factors highlighted for the youth by the youth panel were education, job opportunities, culture, sports, infrastructure, diversity, and local ownership. I should highlight also the fact that in 2024, the Norwegian city of Bodø will be the first European capital of culture located north of the Arctic Circle. This presents a unique opportunity to strengthen the connections between Norwegian Arctic and Europe as a whole. Moving to the third topic on this year's program, which is Arctic resilience, we should start with looking at people living in the Arctic. People have lived and worked in the Arctic for a very long time. This is certainly true for local communities and indigenous peoples in Norwegian Arctic. Some of the most innovative businesses, jobs, and knowledge institutions trace their origins to human settlements along the coast and ocean-based activities going way back in time, going back centuries. Long-standing historical and cultural ties mean also that there has been cross-border cooperation, and people-to-people contact are well developed in the Arctic. Another factor of resilience, this is already in place, but in need of respect and care, is governance. I've already referred to the fact that and others have done so, that there is no legal vacuum in the Arctic. On the contrary, we have an extensive legal governance framework that applies, and it enables considerable practical cooperation across borders under often difficult climatic and logistical conditions. Through this togetherness, there is also no need for new governance mechanisms, as some seem to suggest, but practical action. Resilience of the Arctic, or in the Arctic, is also a function of our understanding of our environment, especially in the face of challenge of global climate change. Science is key, and a number of references have just been made to that in a very cogent, eloquent manner. In this regard, I should like to highlight the contributions from the European side, the European space programs notably. The EU's Earth observation program, Copernicus, supports disaster management, supports marine monitoring, supports security-related services in the Arctic. Galileo and the EGNOS program are crucial for the safety of people by providing precise satellite navigation as services in the region. That is one important contribution from the European side. Norway participates also in the European space programs based on the European Economic Area Agreement, and our geographical location and ground infrastructure on Svalbard and Jan Mayen in Norwegian Arctic and the Troll Research Station in Antarctica are actually indispensable components of this overall system for satellite control and downloading of data. Rounding off the symposium with a session on the Arctic as a more sustainable place to do business seems also apt, and my final remarks will be about that. The Arctic shows great potential for contributing to green growth. In Norway, this is particularly the case with regard to renewable energy and the marine and maritime sectors, where the Arctic looms large. This is an area where we believe our partnership with the EU is particularly important. Indeed, the road to a successful European Green Deal, since we are here in Brussels, I would like to highlight how much we value that objective. That goes also through the Arctic. It basically goes in most directions, but it includes the Arctic. And this includes a strategic energy partnership between Norway and the EU. Now, a number of things could be said about energy, including the positive role of natural gas being played in the European market in the context of tackling the current energy prices. It often stems from the Arctic, this gas. It has been described also as an important transition fuel in Europe's ongoing energy transition. going forward, we see an enormous potential for building more of a strategic industrial partnership between Norway also and the EU. And this partnership has as an aim, among others, to really cut emissions and create new jobs, the two at the same time. We are optimistic. We will contribute with experience and resources, and a huge chunk of those resources and experience stem from our Arctic region. For more than 100 years, we have on our side moved from starting with hydropower as a basis, the energy basis for all our industrial development. And over the last 50 years, we have learned enormous amounts as to how you operate offshore, often in difficult conditions. And today we're building on this experience in new business areas. Offshore wind is not to be missed. Offshore wind is currently our largest renewable export. And we are investing heavily in carbon capture and storage. And natural gas combined with carbon capture can become a significant source of clean hydrogen, which would help us meet our ambitious climate goals. We need all the tools in the toolbox, and the Arctic is part of the equation. In closing, I would like to leave you with two of my main points. The Arctic is a diverse region. Let there be no mistake about that. And not least, it is a region that offers solutions. I thank you for your attention and look forward to the debates on those important issues. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ambassador. A word that comes back in all the speeches so far is the word of collaboration. You spoke a lot about the importance of cross-border collaboration and the importance of also involving the local communities. So thank you very much for your contribution.